And welcome to the Sci-Fi Christian's Game of Thrones Reviews. This is episode 5 of season 4, the first of his name. I'm Ben DiBono.
I'm Emily Kirkwald.
And I'm Ben Kirkwald.
And special week for our opening segment because it's American Craft Brew Week.
Yay!
Hey!
Emily was about to drink a Newcastle before the show started. I stopped her and I was like, no. Because, of course, Newcastle made by the Heineken Corporation, which is outside of Budweiser about as non-craft brew as you can get. But anyway, so I'm drinking something called Modus Operandi, which of course is an IPA from a craft brewery in, of all places, Colorado, as though they had any down there.
Wow.
Yeah, no, Colorado full of craft breweries. And what are you drinking, Emily?
I am drinking a Hefeweizen from Sierra Nevada.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, now, what do you know about the Sierra Nevada Brewery?
I do not know anything.
Oh, they're based out of Colorado.
Okay.
They're not based out of Sierra Nevada?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Colorado. California.
Okay.
See, I got Colorado on the brain now. No, their Torpedo IPA is one of my favorite beers. So
That is a good beer.
yeah, it's a very good beer. I'm surprised you'd say that. You're becoming. I think you're becoming a closet IPA guy.
I think that in the closet, yes.
Yes, I don't know.
I'm there with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, that's right.
Him and I we're bunkmates.
Yes. And, or R. Kelly or whoever it was in the South Park episode. Yeah.
A little bit of everybody.
That's
Tom
right.
Cruise is in there too.
It's a crowded closet. Actually, in the new South Park game that came out a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago now, I guess, you can explore different people's bedrooms, and when you're in Stan's bedroom, if you try and open his closet, you hear Tom Cruise, "I'm never coming out!" It's a great bit. And speaking of IPAs, you are drinking...
Speaking of IPAs, I'm drinking yours. I feel like you would be best to describe this one.
Oh.
So this is Ben's own home craft brew, straight out of the tap, brand new from last week even. You kegged it this week, is that correct?
That is correct. I kegged it on Wednesday. So this is my Old Toby, which is a reference to Lord of the Rings. Old Toby, one of the pipe tobaccos grown in the Shire in the South Farming. It's a smoked IPA, so I use smoked grains in there, which gives it a very, along with the hops, if you just drink it straight, it gives it a very sharp, bitter taste. And it's also a very dry beer, so not necessarily extremely pleasant to drink on its own, but I use the hop brandle to infuse it with fresh hops along the way that balances out all those characteristics, and in my opinion makes for a complex and drinkable beer, but I probably shouldn't toot my own horn. I'll let you toot it for me.
Oh, it's very good. I like the creamy head that you got on top there. I love that. And you don't even use nitrogen, you use CO2 with that.
I do. The creamy head is a result of when you use the hop brandle, you have fresh hops. The hop brandle is basically a little thing that sits in between the keg and the tap.
Yep.
And so the beer is hitting these fresh hops, and it gives it this very, very creamy head that you can't get any other way unless you're using nitrogen. And it also gives it a very wonderful aroma. I've found with every beer I've used that with.
It's canceled out the bitterness.
Exactly. And it makes it a very balanced and complex beer.
A little cloudy, but that's alright.
You know why it's cloudy? Because I filled the hop brandle a little wrong and got a whole hop right in the middle of the tube.
I was wondering what I was chewing on.
So there might be a few of these.
Yeah,
It's getting better. The first few were pretty bad. But it is actually a very clear beer if it wasn't for that. So next batch, we'll have to get that. You actually brewed this is my second batch of Old Toby. You brewed the first one with me way back in February. And I liked it so much, I brewed it again. Alright. So, and then we're smoking... What are we smoking? I'm smoking Villager 1888 Early Day.
And I'm back to the maple. The sweet maple and whatever. That's good stuff.
A maple rum, yeah. Can't get enough of that one. That is a great tobacco.
It's from St. Paul, correct?
No, that's one that's from my friend up in Hibbing.
Oh, right, okay.
So, once I eventually run out, I'm going to have to bug him for some more.
I will also bug him for some more.
Yeah, so that's delicious. All right. First of his name, So every year in Game of Thrones, it seems like you can divide the episodes into about 3 categories. You get 2 or 3 that have the huge shocker moments. You know, obviously the one we've had so far this season, Joffrey dying. You get some that are kind of setup episodes, which last week would be very indicative of,
Yep.
which they're not bad, but they're much more setup than they are the payoff stuff, and that's fine. You know, it's a story, and so long-form storytelling, so you're going to get those. And then you get some like this week, which in my opinion are in some ways, if not the best, because obviously it's hard to beat the shockers in those huge moments, but are in many ways the most complex and the most interesting, where you have a lot of little moments that aren't necessarily, oh crap, a Stark just lost his head again, but really make you think, really make you reconsider how everything is, and show you the real genius of Martin's writing.
This week did not consist of plot setup moments, which I think is what you're referring to in
Right.
last week's. This is more character setup moments, where we learn about Dany's character, we learn about Arya's character, we learn about the relationship between Brienne and what's his face? Pod. And we learn about these and these are the episodes where we really get to dive deep, because nothing's happened, nothing's taking our attention away. We're simply focused on the characters.
Yeah.
Which is a wonderful, and we're able to see them develop.
It's very much a heavy subtext.
And we were able to see that last season with Jaime and Brienne jogging through the woods for 3 episodes, where it was like, but that's when they bonded, and that's when we really felt like they were together and they were friends and stuff. And so these episodes are, even though they might seem like nothing happened this episode, I think that it's completely necessary.
Right. And you almost have to start with the episode title, first of his name, which of course is a reference to Tommen, who we only see in the opening scene. And to me, that's part of the brilliant subtext in these episodes, is that a lot of what's going on, and something you notice more in terms of rereading or rewatching the series, is that Martin, and by extension the series, yes, they're telling this exciting story and everything, but they're also kind of getting at, are you looking for the check tools right there? A little smoking action here.
Well, there you go.
Martin's also getting at stuff like literary criticism and political theory and all of that. And to me, this episode's brilliantly titled because it makes you think it's going to be all about the new king, but really the new king is arguably the least important person on the scene right now. Mm-hmm. And that's such a commentary on where does power truly reside in a kingdom like this.
Right. And does power even matter when we talk about Cersei and Oberyn's conversation? But we can get into that when we get further into the episode here.
But we do start with Tommen. He is crowned. We get a really interesting conversation with Marjorie and Cersei.
You know, it seemed completely different than the conversation that they had last season when Marjorie was being all sweet. And then Cersei was like, I'll kill you in your sleep, you son of a gun. And it was like, okay, everybody back off. But this season, they both know exactly where each other are, and they're both okay with that. It seemed much more frank, and I loved that scene. I thought it was great. What'd you think?
Yeah, very honest. Just, yep, this is how it is. I don't like you, but I realize that you're gonna marry my son, so let's just get on with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit the right word there. Honest. Cersei is such a manipulative and deceptive character. She knows how to play the game, and what a moment of self-awareness where she just says, yeah, Joffrey was a terrible person, and he shocked me.
Yeah.
But yet I still loved him. Just such a great scene. And one of the things I came away from this scene thinking, and this is such a testament to the writing on the series and by Martin especially in the books, is that I've been through this series in book form, show form many, many times, and there's still new things that stick out to me. And one of the things that stuck out to me here is that we've been watching the Lannisters as the villains for the last 4 seasons, essentially.
Yep.
And you could really make a strong argument that Tommen is the best possible king in this whole mess. Yes, he's young and, really it's Tywin and Cersei in charge for now, but think long term. You could make an argument that Tommen is going to be the best possible king this realm could have.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me. It's the villains won, and now we have the best guy who could possibly sit on the Iron Throne.
But it gets back to what you were saying about power.
Right.
And that we've got this nice boy on the throne, but does that really matter?
And that's the counter argument, yeah. And that's why I think, to make that argument, you kind of have to say, well, 10, 20 years from now, is Tommen going to be a great king with these kind of nefarious people out of the way? But think about House Lannister. Tywin's not going to live forever. Cersei and Jaime aren't going to live forever. We've already seen Jaime make a turn for the better. And if Tommen is the next patriarch of House Lannister, all of a sudden this villainous evil house who we've hated for 4 years, they're going to be really good. I mean, and he, of course, could be corrupted or whatever, but just looking at how things are now.
Right. Mm-hmm. The way things are set up right now, it seems to be.
Yeah, the potential is there for House Lannister to become a really, really good, strong ruling family. Even though he's technically a Baratheon, but, I don't... yeah, not so much.
Not really. No, not at all, actually.
Well, technically in the sense that everyone's still pretending that Robert is his father.
Great. Everyone's pretending.
Everyone, yes. Even though it's the worst kept secret in the world. So, hats off to the series for just having those moments like that can really
that's
make
nice.
you think. Mm-hmm. We reached the end of Dany's stuff in Book 3.
Yes, I believe that was her last line in Book 3.
It was.
The last line in Book 3, except for the epilogue.
I'm here to stay, everyone. And all of us readers went, oh no, she's never going to sail to Westeros.
We didn't say that after Book 3. Because she wasn't in Book 4 at all. And then we got to Book 5, and they were like, by the end of Book 5, she's got to be out of there.
Yeah! Stay tuned, everyone!
Spoilers.
Like I said, I hope you all like Marine. I'm curious how that hits you, Emily, with, because I know my reaction when I read that in Book 3 is like, okay.
Well, it seems like her character has been very forward-moving, and she just goes from town to town and frees all these slaves, and she's got these dragons, and she's doing all these things. So to find out that she's just gonna hang out, and her whole thing has been, I need to be the queen of Westeros, and then just say,
right, ever since
not
season 1.
anymore.
Well, or at least not yet.
Yeah, not yet, I guess. You're right.
I do think they...
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I do respect that she is so behind her cause of freedom.
Right.
That she's willing to stay there.
Yeah, that she's willing to put aside her own dream.
I like the way that they put it in the show. They put it a little bit more directly in the show than they did in the actual book, where she's not staying in Marine because that's her best option.
Right.
She's staying in Marine because she needs to know how to rule before she goes to Westeros.
Yeah.
And they made that very clear, I think, in this episode. That clearly she probably could have taken King's Landing and had a chance at winning Westeros. But she has chosen to learn how to rule before she rules the kingdom she feels she's meant to rule.
And really it's a moment where she has to come to grips with the fact that she hasn't been nearly as successful as she thinks she has been. It's like you said, she's been going town to town and, it's just set them up and knock them down. But then the point is really hammered home that, well, okay, we conquered Astapor, we conquered Yunkai, and they're right back to square one. The cycle is repeating itself.
Right. Yeah. And she's like, okay, then I need to fix that this time. Because I don't want this city to fall into that thing again.
Right.
So what do I need to do differently? And I like that attitude. It seems to be drastically different than anybody else's attitude in, in any of the storylines so far in any of the books.
Except maybe Ned before he died.
And he's
I
dead.
would
He had lots of
argue.
honor.
No, I would argue that Ned would have argued for the status quo versus anything else.
Probably.
I would have. Ned would have said, "Well, sorry, this is the way it's always been, and this is the way it's going to be."
Yeah.
I would argue that she's even different than the Starks.
She's certainly more realistic. And just to be clear, this is not a spoiler. This is speculation because this goes beyond anything that's been published. But I kind of feel like, in my opinion, my theory for the end game of the series, in both book and TV show form, is that Dany is she's gonna be on the Iron Throne. And within that theory, and again, it's just a theory, not a spoiler, nothing that we know for sure yet. I really feel that part of what Martin's trying to do here is make her worthy of being that ruler.
Right, of being the person that completely understands the role that she's going to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has to prove herself before she gets there.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So we're all noble and honorary and everything, and then we cut over to the Aerie where things are weird. Things are weird!
I was quite concerned that we were going to see the sun on the boob again.
Hey, he's 12. He's probably mostly weaned off of that.
Just about. This was another one of those great moments I loved. That's just such a small thing. Because, well, let me make the case.
Okay, and then I'll rebuttal.
We haven't seen Lysa since season 1.
Right.
And you think of all that's happened in season 1, or since season 1. There's not a single character who has not been radically changed in this series, except them. And then we cut back to them, and she and Robin are in the same position they were in season 1. He's sitting on her lap, and it's all weird and creepy. And it's such a brilliant but subtle moment of what is so messed up about these characters is that they're stuck in their own little static universe.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. Not to say it's not creepy.
No, okay. The part I didn't like was the Sansa part.
Okay.
Let me tell you what I mean. Her new name, which is
Elaine.
I feel like they left out 6 chapters of Elaine.
Well, I don't think we've seen it all yet.
No, but the development of her character, I liked the very beginning. I really liked the beginning of her character development from Sansa to Elaine.
Okay.
And moving from one to the other, the transition, and learning all of those things from Baelish. And I agree that we're going to learn more about that. Mm-hmm. But I loved the transition of Sansa realizing that this is a game and starting to play the game and things. And I feel like we missed out on a ton of that. And I hope that they do bring it back. I really do. Because I think it's enormously important to her storyline from this point forward. I also didn't like how, in the books, she's never referred to as anything but Elaine. Right. After she leaves King's Landing, it is Elaine, and that is who you are, and there's absolutely no Sansa from here on out.
Right.
But it's like, okay, just around Mr. Peter Baelish, we can describe her as Sansa. But if we're ever in the presence of anybody else, and it's like, no. It's just,
I think she kind of starts to talk to Lysa, and then Lysa freaks out. She's like, don't call yourself anything, you know.
Right. It just seems, I don't know. It seems like that character hasn't developed yet, and it needs to very quickly in order for this storyline to progress.
I think we'll get there. I've got faith.
Okay, all right.
If we've talked about this before, you can stop me. But thinking about Sansa, and I think Sansa is really one of the most fascinating characters in the entire series. I really do. Not a fan favorite. If you've watched any of my reviews on the Sci-Fi Christian on the books, I talk a lot about Sansa because I think what's going on with Martin and Sansa is the audience that we come into the books with our expectations of how stories are supposed to go.
Right.
And then we are transformed by the horrific world we're encountered with. And so Sansa really serves as literary criticism and a stand-in for the audience. And, pursuing that theme, I honestly think that at the end of the series, Sansa's going to be essentially what Cersei is at the height of her power. Ultra manipulative, ultra cynical.
Really?
I think that's where Sansa's going. And just go from this innocent person to the complete opposite.
Oh, I can totally see it.
Yeah.
You can tell
Peter
she's
Baelish.
really good at the game already because you just hear her say, "Oh yes, that's great." Like, she just agrees with whoever she's talking to, and
Yeah.
Well,
when
I
you
wouldn't
can tell
agree.
that she's in.
I wouldn't agree that that's the game. I would agree that that is the she's moving her pawn.
Right.
She has yet to play any of her back pieces.
Sansa's
in the chess
getting
game.
there. She's not the genius Cersei is or nearly as cynical yet, but you can see that she is moving in that direction. Maybe she'll be redeemed by the end of the series. But I don't think so. I think her journey is going to be the audience's journey. And part of this plays into, and I know we're tangenting and we'll get back to the episode in a minute, but part of this plays into that you got to remember this series starts in 1996 is when the first book is released. And you're coming off of 80s fantasy and everything, where so much of it is just retreads of Tolkien. And so what the fantasy scene looked like in terms of novels back then was you have very stark contrast between good and evil, and you know who every good guy is at every moment of the book, you know who every bad guy is at every moment of the book.
Right.
And a part of it is the Martin effect of the influence of this series, but now we've kind of gone in the opposite direction 20 years later, where everything's this ultra gray, postmodern fantasy. And so the audience in some ways has already taken that version. But in 1996, the early readers of this series were very much approaching fantasy novels the way Sansa approached the world at the beginning of the series. Naive, expectations that there's this clear demarcation between good and evil. So
I can get behind that.
it's a fascinating piece of literary criticism that's going on underneath this series. Anyway, let's not bury the lead here, though. We find out that Lysa murdered Jon Arryn.
Which
Oh
means
my gosh.
which means that the Game of Thrones should have never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
that was crazy.
Which is, I remember reading that and going, well, geez, if she wouldn't have done that. And so, gosh, it just makes me think that Peter Baelish is just behind everything.
That's
Yeah.
the only reason the Starks leave Winterfell. That's it, is to expose the Lannisters as Jon Arryn's killer.
Right.
And all this time, we've just kind of believed that Cersei was really behind that. And guess what, everyone? Because the assumption that Ned makes, and the assumption we as the audience make, is that Arryn finds out about Jaime and Cersei and the incest, which he
Right.
does. We know that because that's his final words. It's the seed is strong, referring to the fact that if it had been a Baratheon, he wouldn't have looked like Jaime Jr. And now here we are 3 seasons later, and we find out you need to be very careful what you assume in this series.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we go to, thankfully off-screen, Lysa and Littlefinger getting it on. A little
Poor
Consummation.
Sansa trying to fall asleep.
That was pretty
Assumingly
great.
like 12 levels away.
Yeah,
I'm
Lysa's
sorry.
a howler.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thunk it?
I am glad that I did not do the audiobooks like you did.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
It's quite a performance. Peter! So-
Yes.
Let's not act that out. Now, we do cut away from them for a while, but let's just stick with them. So, because it's kind of interesting, then we have this scene later on with Lysa and Sansa. And Lysa is quite jealous of Catelyn. She's talking bad about her dead sister.
Right.
And is ultra jealous of Sansa.
Right.
So, just when you think things can't get any creepier...
I was glad that they put this scene in because she seemed much too normal in the first scene.
Oh, yeah.
She
Yeah, I
seemed
agree.
very just down to earth and like regular, and I was like, this is not the Lysa that I know from the books.
Right.
And then we got into that. And I was
knew it was going to get there.
This is the Lysa I know, the creepy jumping to conclusions and doing whatever, like, kind of crap.
Yeah. Not
and
only
so,
you want him, but you've had Peter.
Right, you've had Peter. I haven't had Peter, I'm a virgin. And it's like, okay, this is too much.
And then she's like, oh, let me comfort you.
Yeah.
And, like,
and you get to marry your cousin.
Yeah.
For the real Jack.
See how long it takes Sansa to realize that, though?
Yeah.
It was like, wait.
What's
like, no. I'm not marrying that kid.
Now, it's probably not as weird to marry cousins back in the old medieval times. But I think we can all agree Robb and Aaron, probably not the catch of Westeros. Slightly above Joffrey. Slightly.
I don't even know.
Hey, he's not
but Joffrey was the king of all.
He's not shooting hookers with a crossbow, though. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good selling point.
That's true. That's fair.
Okay. We have a little bit with Brienne and Pod. We have a couple of scenes with them. They're amusing, though much like that storyline in the books, not a lot happens. No. I kind of hope that they keep it like this, where we get them in about 1 to 2 minute spurts. Mm-hmm. And
that's all we need them. Their characters will develop like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I mean, it's about the same as Jaime and Brienne. A little bit shorter, because there's not as much... There's not as much stuff to deal with this time around. So I was satisfied with that, and if they do that every episode, perfect. They're like the characters you cut away to after something big happens.
Oh, we almost had it. I usually set myself on fire once during this series. Mm-hmm. Just let that guy cool there on my lap.
All right, perfect.
A little match head fell off. Yeah, I did enjoy Pod cooking the rabbit and just setting it on fire. That was kind of awesome.
Yeah, well, the cooks usually do that. You forget how, like, lavish of a squire life he lived.
Yeah. Oh, I skipped over some stuff. Okay, let's go back to King's Landing. We have 2 conversations, Cersei and Tywin and Cersei and Oberyn. The Tywin conversation is interesting because we find out that the Lannisters are not quite as rich as they'd like everyone to think.
I loved this conversation. It's the first time that we've seen a vulnerability in the Lannister armor.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, by the way, we owe this bank a ton of money. And they're like, well, how much is a ton? And it's like, well, it's probably more than you can imagine.
Uh-huh.
And that's about what it is when it comes to it here. When we actually, I think they say a number in the books. I don't remember. I don't want to misquote.
But of course, that's how Littlefinger was when he was the Master of Coin, was getting all the money for all these jousts and feasts and everything.
Right. And so...
and then we had the conversation with Oberyn.
Take me to the garden.
Yes. A little South Park thing going on. Yeah, like you were saying during the episode. If you haven't watched the South Park series, or their trilogy on spoofing Game of Thrones, you need to. It's hilarious. And they do a whole thing on walking in the garden. But anyway, you watch it yourself. But yeah, this is another great scene because I like, again, the vulnerability of Cersei. And I love the line where Oberyn's, they're talking about Myrcella, who is Cersei's daughter, if you're not keeping up with the whole cast of characters, she's down in Dorne. Okay, so she is being, I'm blanking on the word, but she's being raised down there. She's the ward of the House of Dorne.
Yes, ward, yeah.
And Oberyn tries to reassure her and says, oh, we don't harm little girls there. And she says, everywhere harms little girls. And what a great, again, small, subtle moments of commentary on the nature of the world.
Right.
Just brilliant. And part of that is, okay, Cersei is this ultra-cynical, evil character in many ways, but what's going on behind there? It's like, well, she's experienced that firsthand.
Right, exactly.
And it's just like we see Sansa developing in that direction. We kind of are going the opposite with Cersei, where we're getting some hints as to why is Cersei the way she is. Well, because she grew up as a little girl in this world where little girls aren't safe anywhere.
Right.
It's just such a great moment.
Yeah.
Anything else on either of those conversations?
I thought that the Oberyn conversation was going to contain a touch more, maybe about the trial and something, but it was just pretty, I I don't know. It's just like, Marcella, bring this boat to her.
Yeah.
I think it's just so that we didn't forget about her. Because she, in the books, does not show up until book 4. And even in the middle of book 4, really.
Right, because we don't see anything in Dorne. Just like in the show. I mean, we've seen Oberyn, but we haven't seen Dorne yet.
No.
So,
and that's coming.
yeah, that'll be coming. There's some very interesting stuff down there. Arya and the Hound. Always a highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They're just a good pair.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. I think we all knew that she still had saved the Hound's name at the end there, which was fine.
Oh, you knew it was coming, but it was still great.
Right, it was still wonderful. His little, look up at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then I liked her fighting in the, play fighting in the field there, dancing, in the field. And then trying to kill the Hound or trying to stab him and realizing that she can't stab him because of the armor there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she needs to rethink her strategy if she's going to be fighting people in...
Big armor with big swords.
Right, if she's going to be fighting people in Westeros, because Westerosi people wear armor.
Yes.
People in Bravos do not, I believe.
Right.
For the most part, they do not.
This was an interesting moment, kind of a meta moment, possibly, because there's been tons of theories that Syrio Forel isn't really dead, and that's been going on ever since Book 1 was over, because we never actually see him die on screen, or either in the series or in the books. In the books, because it's an Arya point of view chapter, so as soon as she leaves, we don't see anything else of that fight.
Right.
And Martin has always kind of scratched his head as to why there's theories out there and kind of put them to rest. You know, and maybe he's just BSing all of us and Syrio Forel really will make a return at some point. But I almost wonder if part of what was going on here was Martin saying, hey guys, slip this into the dialogue that no, Syrio Forel is really dead. Because that's really what this Hound is saying, is that, look, you want to know why he's dead? He had a small sword and no armor.
Right.
It wasn't that he was less skilled, it's that he wasn't, again...
Didn't have the resources.
He didn't have the resources and wasn't taking seriously the world he's living in.
Right. Which is...
the fatal mistake in this series. Is to not take seriously the world you live in.
Right.
And then finally, we end again on Craster's Keep. I don't know about you guys, hopefully for the last time. I haven't minded this storyline, like it hasn't upset me even though it's an addition into the books.
Right.
It's okay, but man, I'm bored with it.
It's not going anywhere. I want to hear your take.
Well, it was really exciting when Bran and Jon were like this close to each other and you're like, just want them to see each other. But I knew that wasn't going to happen because, as you alluded to, it didn't happen in the books and you knew, what was going to happen if they saw each other. That was just going to take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I did not find it boring when Bran entered Hodor and killed that guy. I forgot that guy's name.
All right.
Locke.
Okay, yeah.
That was satisfying.
I liked that. That was pretty awesome, Bran.
To me, there were some great moments in there. That was one. I mean, there's a couple great death scenes, just in terms of, oh, that's gruesome and cool. Here's my take, is that and maybe part of it was the episode set in, but I've been mentioning all these small moments and the literary criticism and all the subtext and depth in this series, which is a huge part of why I love it. And to me, this was the most surface level storyline we've had in the entire series.
Well, because it had to be. It couldn't contribute to the actual storyline.
Right. This
is like the little blip they need to fill 2 episodes with.
But not even just in terms of plot, but just, thematically. Okay, we had our villain here who... Does anybody know his name? Nope. No. Least memorable villain in the entire series so far.
Right.
And...
Memorable face, though.
Memorable face. And it felt so conventional in terms of if Hollywood was doing this series from scratch, this would be the type of storylines we get. And it's not bad necessarily. You can find a lot worse stuff to watch, like 24, which is on again tonight.
Thanks for throwing that.
Yeah. But, you know, it's just so cliched. Like, oh, now we're going to have the fight scene that means nothing. It means nothing. Whereas every moment like that, virtually in the books and in the series, has meaning and subtext to it on some level or other.
Well, I think that's what we're going to find is when they're starting to deviate from the plot in this point and then in other points that we're going to struggle with that finding meaning part.
Right.
But here's a question I have for you.
All right.
Did you think that there was subtext with Locke trying to take Bran and realizing that the last time we saw Locke was with Bolton and that there was something going on there? Because that's what I thought. I was like, oh, well, that's why he also joined Jon Snow.
Yeah, I guess some people set us straight in the comments last week that there was some kind of throwaway line or something in that last time we saw Bolton and Locke together where Bolton was like, yeah, go to the wall and see if you can find Bran and Rickon.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, that was why he was there. I just forgot it. Obviously, it wasn't memorable. None of us remembered it.
No, we didn't really care about it.
Yeah, I mean, I did enjoy Hodor getting his due there and Bran entering Hodor, which does happen in the book at various times. So it was kind of a nice callback to some moments in the book. That was my favorite part of the whole thing. I guess I'm referring more to once we got into Jon enters Craster's Keep and we're going to have a fight, it's like...
Yeah.
I just go to sleep at those moments. Unless you have amazing choreography, where it's just this incredibly well thought out fight scene, it means nothing at that point. It's just boring. I mean, contrast to a fight like Jaime and Ned in season 1. Well, there's so much going on there. You know, Ned's sense of honor, and then Jaime showing up, and we've only seen him and Tyrion on screen in the pilot, but we get this sense of loyalty and anger that Jaime has over the fact that Catelyn's kidnapped Tyrion, and then we have the whole, what does this mean that Jaime just attacked the Hand of the King? And all of that's going on underneath the surface while we're watching them fight. Mm-hmm. You have none of that there.
Right. There's nothing drawing.
You're just like, oh, yeah,
it's a fight scene.
These horrible guys should die.
Right.
And we all know that Jon's going to win. It's like a foregone conclusion. So, again, not that it was a terrible scene, but we really got conventional for a series that is unconventional in almost every way.
Right.
But other than that, I really enjoyed this episode. What were you guys' thoughts? Any final thoughts on the episode?
It was okay. I felt it was more of a filler episode than anything. I mean, I guess I always feel like the character development ones are never... Especially in an episode like this where we're developing new character relationships like Brienne and Pod, and we're developing Marjorie and Cersei, and we're developing all of these new ones. I'm just kind of like, okay, I know we have to do this in order to, like, dive in a few episodes where it's going to be like, oh man, now I'm going to reflect back on this. So I feel like that's the way I'm looking at this episode, is this is going to be an episode that I will reflect back on.
See, and I think you have a different opinion because you already know what's coming next. But for me, I didn't think this was a filler episode. I liked this episode. I thought there were some good things going on. You found out about Lysa poisoning Jon Arryn.
That's true.
You had some interesting things, and you got to see a lot of characters. So.
And I have a different perspective from both of you because I was an English major. So I'm all about the subtext and themes.
Right,
of course. Yes, right. So there you go. 3 different perspectives on this episode. But yeah, halfway through the season.
Oh my gosh.
It goes by fast.
I don't want it to be over.
Well, don't worry. I don't know if we've actually mentioned this on the show. I know we've talked about it, but already renewed for 5 and 6. So we'll get 2 more seasons at least.
All right.
There you go.
And hopefully,
Martin, keep writing.
Yes.
Faster. I hope we did 10 pages today.
Should we say it like Lysa? Faster, Martin, faster. All right, everyone. On that note, this is the Sci-Fi Christian's Game of Thrones reviews, and I'm Ben DiPono.
I'm Emily Kirkwald.
I'm Ben Kirkwald.
Yeah, goodbye, everyone.
Bye. We didn't say Happy Cinco de Mayo.